All right, let's jump into things. Where we at? 10:52 on 29th of April. So second last day of the trading month. I think that's right, 30 days in April. And look, I'll sort of start off with DXY here, just because look this. I mean, look, it's pretty much the story of it the whole way down here, and that it just continues to disappoint. It's funny because like certainly like I've been on. I mean couple of times been on the other side of these trades and you're like, oh, look, here we go, it's falling over and boom, just powers on, falls over, bang, falls over. And it just sort of seems when you're trying to counter trade this thing, it is just an absolute mind-numbing experience. And we've sort of been looking at this potential sort of inverted head and shoulders, and I was saying, look, I gave it through till pretty much yesterday. I was saying, look, the Fridays, I think it was Thursday also, I was saying that, look, to just to have the sort of the potential shoulders about the same, that we would sort of see a bit of a would give it the time limit through till expectation through till sort of Monday, Friday and Monday. So get my words out there, Friday and Monday. Before we could see something happen. And look, yesterday at a couple of points, if we get onto a lower time frame, you can see it was trying to sort of make its move. It sort of opened up and pushed and pushed and pushed, but it just could not get through that sort of that what turned out to be a little falling resistance here, and we can see that obviously sort of through Asia and Europe sessions, it kind of held its own. It was very just grindy, but US came on board and bang, they dumped that thing down. And as you can see, this is where I was sort of saying on the weekend, it was the buyers were stepping up, and as soon as the buyers weren't here, as you can see, they're holding it, and it chopped down. Thought you might have sort of got a little bit of a response from here. Nah, no go. Bang, down to the bottom end here. So this was the little box that I sort of put in on, I think it was on the weekend and that. So obviously sort of saying that this down here is the major fail, for me anyway. I was calling that if you sort of go down underneath this sort of, 98.85 or so, that would be pretty much the time that you can sort of guarantee, and it's coming down here. And look, that line's still in effect. It did close quite bearish, as you can see, but we've obviously just into a little bit of a start of sort of Asia at the moment, not really getting the full volume in quite yet. But we saw a little bit of a gap up, a little bit of a push down. Again, go into an even smaller time frame. You can see a little gap up, sold into, and it's just trying to recover a little bit of that sort of sell down sort of through that period. Through the second half of pretty much the whole of the US session. So that's kind of where we're at the moment, and sort of we've got to sort of see. Look, is this it? Is this the time that it's just going to completely fail and come down here, or is this go back onto this just pretty much what we sort of gave it room to breathe with, in the sense of here was a little consolidation box and that. So we didn't sort of say, or I didn't say, I should say. I'm very much in the habit of saying we. There's only just me here, but. I wasn't giving anything tight like this, saying, hey, look, a close out of here, and that's it. And look, this could be the case. You could see that it comes up here, sellers. This was a previous support. The fact that it wasn't respected so greatly on the way down here, like it was for a split second there, I suppose, but, it wasn't overly, doesn't make me think that, okay, it's going to be necessarily a super strong resistance. But it's certainly an area that I want to sort of see what happens with the market. So I think it's sort of like in the short term, up to 99.23 or so, 25, 23, whatever, 99.20s. I think that's going to be a telling area. So this is either going to give us a little bit of a push up, where we could see sellers come in where they were not really so much here, a little bit of a sort of back and forth at this point here, but this is more the point, and a little bit of this that I'm looking at to sort of see, are there people that were trying to buy this thing given that opportunity? Obviously, they were for a split second. They're overrun by the sellers. Are they just going to bail out? If they bail out and you come down here and you break that low, that's when you're going to get this move here. So I think we've got, at minimum, sort of a little bit of a push up to sort of test to see if these buyers have become sellers into this zone here, or the alternative to this is pretty much that, of course, thing. that it ignores this line here because look, it did try and hold. I guess you got this is on the 1 hour. You got two little candles trying to hold, and then obviously just crunch through it. So you might see some reaction regardless of it all, but either that or it pushes back through. And if it pushes back through and ignores this part here, I would say minimum a move up to 99.6. A bit of a rising support here. That's where it kind of like you break. Same sort of thing. We've seen a lot of this recently with these sort of rising supports. Break, board up, and that's the time to enter, and bang, and they moved it down. So 99.6 would be the next level that I'd be kind of looking at to sort of see, what's going to be happening with the market basically up there. All in all, it's pretty much sideways. Yeah, it's flared down here, but you know what I mean? It kind of has a bit more of a feel of it is just consolidating and it's just at the bottom of a range. We gave it that extra little bit based on this lot over here because we thought, look, buyers are going to be here, and look, you can see for at least the main part of it, buyers are stepping back in, same level over here as well, and they're attempting to push it up. So main sort of thing is to sort of see what happens at 99.20, if it has any impact at all. If it does, and we see sellers start to move in and we take out the lows, that's really opening it up for a move down low 98s, I would say. I would say you're probably coming back down to really revisit these bigger sort of support areas over here where we saw market sort of double tap into, and then double click, come back into, and you probably sort of see it move back down to this zone over here. That's on a push up and then a push down and retest the bottom over there. If we see this, we'll see sort of probably, things like Aussie might actually be, Aussie is up at the top of its range. And this is the thing, it's sort of like, like you got to think it's sort of like, is it in a range? Is it just is it at the outsides, the edges of the range, or is this the time that it's going to go? Because we've had a nice sort of like, here's a high pullback, high. Oh, it looks like it's going to go, no fail, down, up, no fail. Like, you know what I mean? It's you got to sort of be able to. No one can tell. No one's got a crystal ball. Is this the time that they go, yep, that's enough for us now, and bang, then we're down over here, or is it just another moment of looks like we're failing, gotcha, and move back up and on with the show? Because we do have a fair bit of sort of fairly large bits of data in that, mainly sort of NFP coming out this week. You've got a couple of other things like BOJ, and obviously that sort of weighs into the sort of DXY a little bit, and also that whole sort of safe haven kind of sort of part of it all. But it's just a matter of sort of like, is this the moment that they're saying, hey, look, base down here? I would tend to be in the camp of saying not, only just for the fact that you do have these large bits of data coming up. As I sort of looked at over the weekend with, sort of a bit of a preview and looking forward for what data was coming out this week, it was all looking pretty rubbish for the US dollar. So if people are sort of positioning themselves prior to a couple of these other bits of data coming up, then, this could be the reason that they've started to sell dollars prior to this kind of stuff. Because we got, for what it's worth, we've got jolts tonight. I think ADP tomorrow or the next night. We've got, as I said, NFP is the big one that we're looking for at the end of the week. And all these numbers were not conducive for, hey, let's buy a US dollar. So this could just be a little bit of a sort of positioning prior to these bits of data sort of coming out. We've also got sort of, end of month coming up, and, you hear these sort of things where sort of people go, look, end of month, end of month flows and, expected to be buying US dollars. Well, let's see if that happens, because at the moment, certainly they were bucketing it down. Even as they opened yesterday, basically it kicked off yesterday when you had US Open and the equity market spiked up. And okay, you could see typical kind of thing, market spike up, US dollar goes down. It's a pretty sort of reasonable explanation with the sort of inverse relationship they have. But then the market continued, actually sold right into. If you have a look here, you'll be able to see it. So it spiked up and then they sold straight down into it. Obviously bought back up afterwards, but even this little moment here where they sold into it didn't have any effect on US dollar, on DXY. You can see that sort of like, maybe this was around this period here where they sort of bought it up half a cent or so, but, well, a couple of points, but all in all, very much on the back foot there. So it just ticked over 11 o'clock, so you might start to see a little bit of volume come into the markets now. Seeing just having watching metals at the same time, and it's just pulling back a little bit. All right, so yeah, as I said, look, I think this sort of this is the area that I'm kind of watching, 99, 20, 25, this kind of area through this zone here. If we even get up to it, if we don't even get up to it, well, that's very much is coming into this light here. But I would expect probably a push up here, see what happens. I'm leaning in the camp, as I said, that, given that we've got the large bits of data coming up this week, that they won't break the major structure, which is this bigger box, which is this kind of larger box here. I'm pretty much given that they won't break this prior to that data coming out. The weak data could get it back down over here, certainly, but I would say that, in the interim, there's probably a chance to sort of see a little bit of a move up, and then maybe sort of see what happens, around these areas where we saw them try to hold it, and see if those buyers are going to be turning into sellers through this point here. Make a little zone through there as well. All right, so yeah, we'll see how this sort of flow goes. Let's get back onto the lower time. But yeah, so see how it goes once we get a little bit of volume into the market. I think it's pretty flat on the news in terms of through Asia. Today we've got bank holiday in Japan. We've got the elections for Canada. No idea how this has turned out. RBA speaker, and that's about it through Asia. Not really too much, and even through US and Europe, there's not a great deal of data that's jumping out. You got trade balance kind of stuff. Maybe that'll be interesting in that, just given everything that's been happening recently. But JOLTS, I think, is the main sort of one. And as I said, look, you're looking like a little bit of a tick down and a golf, like I sort of covered on the weekend and that, like, you're going to be less inclined to be hiring more people, i.e. job openings, when you're a little bit more cautious about sort of things in the situation. So if should this come in lower, well, that's obviously a little bit of sort of a shaking confidence of what's coming up. And you can actually see the next bit of data here as well also is consumer confidence, and that's also tipped to be coming down a little bit there. So, this could just be some sort of like, positioning prior to these bits of data coming out. Okay, which chart? This is the chart we're using. All right, cool. So move along. We had gold actually sort of picked up off its lows last night. As you can see, sort of really sort of picked up here again. It was around that sort of time at US Open, and it just actually put in the biggest sort of bullish move it has for a while here. And this is what I'm sort of saying with it all, same sort of thing with the US dollar as well. Is this the moment that we're going to get the big breaks to be coming back up to test the highs? Or is this just typical gold? Let's rally up here, take out these highs, take out these highs. Because yesterday, as it opened, it just got smashed straight into. As you can see here, like they sort of had an opportunity to sell it, and they just clobbered it. Bang, bang, bang down here. But main supports around this 32.60 level obviously held. And they had one, two, three. Well, they had 2 attempts yesterday, one on Friday, and obviously the start of this one to sort of sell down here. So it is attempting to sell down. You can see them sort of move down, move down, move down. But if you look at the little sort of direction of these sellers, they've obviously, as soon as they break through there, they're thinking, hold on, wait, this is a little bit bullish. But realistically, it is all still just sideways. You know what I mean? It's a nice little push up, certainly. Like, you know what I mean? I think we hit, what's that, 74 on the lows there. We actually got down, I think, even lower, initially 32.70. So, 32.70 up to 53. There's an $80 move within the day. Certainly, sort of, there's a little bit of money can be made. Oh, well, definitely. That's the thing. It's hard to sort of recalibrate that $80 move can be just, hey, that's a move of the day. And certainly when you get, like, we're used to these big, $30, $40, $50 swings within an hour or 2 hours with gold. And then when you have these moments here where it's sort of like, between 89 and 99, and then it's back down to 76, up to 93, like $15 things, you're like, God, how does anybody ever trade this and make any money? Any money? It's just because you get a little bit spoiled with the fact of these things sort of just flying around and moving so much. But anyway, the thing is with gold, you could see ultimately it is just doing this. It's pulled back and it's just going sideways. It's had one, two, well, kind of technically four, but let's just say these ones here because this one was just establishing the low down here. 1, 2, 3 attempts to go there. You can see as last attempt was probably the key to sort of see that there was going to be a little bit of a bounce effort coming, because obviously they stepped it up and unable to get it quite down as low as them. You could have said, like, if you get too low on the candles and that, you can see that's technically a little bit of a body close down there, but not really anything. Anyway, look, point is it's sideways. Are they going to break it back up here? They're going to break it down here. Probably not, maybe not until the start of, till we have a little bit of this data out this week. So it means that sort of while these things are pushing up, they're still in their range. People are selling into them. They couldn't quite get it up to the top end of the range. Well, as of this point right now, they couldn't quite get it up to the top of the end of the range because we know sellers are sitting at 64. I mean, we've seen it we've seen it a number of times. We know that they're sitting here, but as of right now, they've actually moved down. They said, look, you know what, I'd sell it at 64 previously, but you know what, 52, that's good enough for me. Close enough in that. I want to get out. I want to book some profit. I want to look at other things. And that's what they're doing. They're sort of like moving their sell orders down a little bit and taking profit a little bit earlier. Look, this could very much just turn around, flip and bang, smash back up into here. But as of this point, you can see that it's obviously seeing some profit taking back down into these moves through here. So, again, it just sort of means that while DXY smacked down the bottom, while gold's rallying up towards the top of its range, Aussie's up towards the top of its range, they're not breaking out as of yet. Obviously, they're all sort of setting up. They're all moving sideways. But, it's just a matter of sort of like, is this the moment where it's going to get the break? Or is this just going to be another one of these moments, where it's looks like it's breaking, but no, it's in a range. Looks like it's breaking, no, it's in a range. Took out the highs of the yesterday's open, and people have obviously decided to sort of jump on the sells and move that down there. So 52 down to, what are we sitting at now? 27. So, a couple of bucks down, but certainly nothing, I mean, none of these sort of monster candles or anything like this here. So I think market's a little bit cautious. And I think that's the thing as well. Like, this is what it is, consolidating sideways. You've got a segment of the market that wants to see this. You've got a segment of the market that wants to see this. And hence that's why you get consolidations. It's a back and forward tussle between the market. Like, if you look at this on a large enough time frame, you can't see all the drawings on here. It's this stuff here. Well, mainly more sort of this one here, but it is indecision, wicks on both sides. So you can't sort of say, hey, look, yes, it's definitely going up to the top. You can't say, hey, yes, it's definitely cooling down, because buyers are happy to hold it, sellers are happy to sell it. We just got to wait to see what happens when this sort of when this range breaks. Let's put these back on here. So for now, I would say that most likely you probably see a little bit of a continued cooling back down over here. We did have a little bit of this falling resistance through here. You can see the sellers banging the breakdown over here. So I wouldn't be surprised if it does sort of try some little rally attempt. I don't think this is just going to go whoop back down over here, but up down kind of thing. I imagine it's between sort of 3,300, 3,330. We could find ourselves probably like a little range. Oh, Jesus. Those alerts are insane. Yeah, we could find ourselves possibly a little bit of a range through here. I mean, look, we did have a little bit of a, get onto the cell, whatever, boom. A little bit of a zone sort of through here, maybe back down sort of 33.12. See if this can sort of like provide any sort of support for the market moving through. Obviously, at the moment, very small. It'll range just through this bit here. But look, the RSI says probably see a little bit more cooling. We'll see what happens with the rest of the rest of Asia session and that. But as I said, I think it's going to be a lot of this kind of stuff through here, which is just kind of up down with smaller movement candles. I don't think we're going to get the rocket candles in Asia at the moment. Asia was definitely the place where they were buying, doing a lot of buying in that, particularly all the way through up through here. Asia session was like, bang, Asia's open, let's start buying. And they just hammer. I mean, even here, look, 8 o'clock, and sort of moving up. That's an Asia session where, they're on the bid. Obviously here, they've started to sell into it. Where's your 8 o'clock? 8 o'clock's just here, and they've started to sell into it. So, look, I think as much as this is a kind of like we'll cover all bases, I could see both scenarios happening. I could see it move back up here, test the sellers at this level. I could also see it move back down, even sort of sub 33. I just think more or less probably what we're just going to see is a continued sideways till we get a little bit of this data coming out this week, or we see DXY break its lows. That could open it up for a test up above this 33.80 for a major break to the top side. All right. Took along, we got Aussie, and Aussie is very much bucking the trend. It's really teasing towards the top here. Like, as I said, sort of round the top is what I was looking for. I was looking for this move down to sort of like test these lower levels through here. So we did have these little levels sort of built out with it all, and you can see it attempted, and the sell downs are coming quite strong, but it just could not get down there, and it's fired back up here. So as I said, I'm not a big one with caution with Aussie here. So yeah, we're potentially looking like this may want to break a bit higher. So let's grab this off here for now. Stops blaring in my ear. Certainly at the moment, it's looking like it wants to sort of break higher. This is a major level through here. We can see how strong the sells have been previously. A little bit, I suppose it grinded up around here. This one, he just touched it and they bailed it back down. But certainly looking like it wants to break a bit higher here. This whole sort of bounce consolidation does look like it wants to push forward through. I've been wanting to get this way down here back, so I want to see a bit larger sort of sell down. May not actually happen now. If we look at things, we do this. There we go. If we have a look at this little scenario just here, if I can select these things, move them over here. So US dollar, very much on the back foot. So that's actually giving a bit of a push up over it. China, I'm still going to give it a sideways there because really, I'll get to one in a moment. It's attempting to sell up and then sells down. Attempting to sell up and sells down. It's just doing completely what it does, but it's unable to get off its ass basically. So sorry, 2 seconds. Just sort of having a look on another gold chart. I'll get to in a second with a little negative divergence. RBA is meeting this week. Sorry, not meeting this week. We've got CPI this week. That is tipped to come down a little bit. So again, look, I sort of want to say that would be obviously counterintuitive for Aussie to break out, but they are buying it regardless. And I don't know if it's necessarily just US dollar weakness that is driving it. Maybe a recovery in equity markets and a little bit more of a risk on sort of feel with that as well. But for whatever reason, they're sort of buying this up. But you would sort of think the fact that, they're expecting CPI to come down, they're talking about cuts, that would be a little bit of a handbrake on Aussie. But as you can see, it is still powering through. On a higher time frame, it's very much doing, like I think I've got this on a different chart, very much doing what we've seen Aussie do a lot of times, where it builds itself a base, fakes out, and then explodes up. And I've covered this obviously as they're marked out here a number of times. This is a very big recovery here. And as you can see, it's wanting to so it's got the ability to very much squeeze because it's stopped out and just rocked out a whole bunch of people over here. So should this thing get on, we could see this thing move a little bit higher. And if we grab this fib here. Whoops. This would be you can see it's butting up against the 50% here, but I would say certainly up around 65.50 should this 64.50 level break. It's got a little bit of room to move with the RSI. It's certainly breaking out above these areas where we've seen the sellers and that previously. This is on a weekly time frame, so obviously, higher time frames are more significant. It's held above here, and it looks like it wants to charge. I think certainly if we see DXY, a US dollar sort of sell off, this is going to be a big beneficiary, and we're going to see this just charge right up towards 65.50. I don't know if I'd sort of see this necessarily sort of going much higher, in the short term at least, but that's still another 120 points, so another 2% or so to the top side there. So Aussie very much threatening to push out to the top there. So that's on the bigger picture. Again, the whole sort of thing is it just doing the same thing that we've seen on those other ones? Because it is still in the consolidation, and it's in the top of the sort of range over here at the moment. Looks like it really wants to go. Weekly says yes, it wants to go, but ultimately it's still just butting heads with these levels that we've seen a couple of times where we know sellers are. So I would say at the moment, look, it had a little bit of a sell down earlier this session, was just down to 21. I would say in the short term, it needs to hold above that little wick, because obviously it's sold down. Here's another effort to push back up. If it can't punch through now, I would say you're probably going to see a little bit of people just cautious, because as you can see, we know sellers are here each time. They've shown up here again. Unless you have the momentum to push right through here, market's going to get scared and they're going to sort of go, okay, bang, and you're probably looking back down around that sort of 64 level, and just on with the sideways hustle. And that's what I'm sort of saying with a lot of these things. Like, they're all in sort of consolidations. They're all at their respective resistance or support areas. The question is, with this sort of stuff at the moment, is this the moment? Is this the time that we're going to see it bang and break out here? If we were coming in, if we were sitting like this and we had NFP in a couple of hours, so if we are still in this box and if we do rally back up to these levels prior to these bits of data, maybe that's the time that you see the market just poised, waiting for the weak US data, and then bang, explode out to the top side. But is it going to sort of move? And this is the question, is no sort of set answer. You just have to sort of, kind of play it by ear. But I don't think it will move and get these major breaks, because this is a major level, major breaks prior to the data. I mean, everything could change in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But as it is at the moment, it looks like, sellers are still holding this level here. Short term, you need to stay above 20. You fail 20, you're back down at, I would say, at least minimum 64. And then sort of you have a chance to sort of see what they do back around 64. And maybe it's just on with the show. Back and forth, back and forth. But yeah, certainly coming into a major level just there. Silver. Silver sort of, it's holding in there. Certainly. So this is the play that I was looking for coming into the end of last week, sort of like to hold this support here, hold support. Yes, they open, bang, sold down, and we're like, oh, that's great. So the plan with silver here was pretty much just one of sort of have your sell down, come back up in here, and then get ready, short, and then bang, sell down here. Though, in true annoyance fashion, it's grinded, and here we go, no, bang, here we go, no, bang, here we go, no, bang. So look, silver's not really doing anything. It's just, look, it's slightly grinding back up. It's moving along a little bit with gold, but really it's having a lot of trouble up around this sort of like 33.15 kind of area. And really it's just testing the underside of this channel. So if we have a look here, So yeah, it's really just sort of testing the underside of this channel. So it's hard to sort of say, look, is this just going to be some fake out and move back up the top over here? Look, if DXY breaks down, if gold breaks out, silver will be beneficiary of these things as well, and I could see it sort of just be turn into a little bit of a fake out and move back up. I don't think so, though. I still am in the camp of it moving down at least to test 32. If it's going to sort of do much, I think sort of 32 and then maybe try and sort of turn into like a larger kind of range through here. Let me build this up and say this lot here. Into a sort of larger range. I think that's, if you're going to sort of try and play the bullish case, I think that's probably more the case of what you see. So move down here and then sort of like a bounce back up and a potential sort of range come through here. Whoops. That's the kind of sort of feeling. Look, RSI is down, oversold. It's pushing up here a little bit. It's just been very, grindy is the only way I could really say. So you want to see sort of, if this is going to move back up, you want to see some volume back the move. Because at the moment, it's just sort of grinding. Like this is what I was saying here. So like broke down, moved back up, and then it got sold into. And I was like, here we go, bang, and grinded up a little bit higher. So yeah, it's at the moment, yes, it is sort of slowly grinding up. You sell it down, they buy it up. You sell it down, they buy it up. Sell it down, they buy it up. It's not, you can't say it's going either way. The fact that it's broken this rising resistance and rising support and it's actually turning into a little bit of a resistance, okay. But again, I think you really need to get down under 32.60 to sort of see this move down to 32. And then I want to see the resolve of the buyers at 32. Because the scenario for me here is that you've broken this supposed channel, this wedge at the top over here. You haven't committed to the downside yet, but I think that needs to be respected, but that it has broken. I think you come down along here. Bullish case would be that you see buyers step in here and turn this into a range. If you get down underneath 32, well, the size of the size of the little arrow here kind of dictates where I think where the market's going to take it. But I think sort of, the move is probably looking down towards 32.20. See the support area here and see what happens with the market there. I don't see this necessarily just flying through the top here. For this to break up and sort of move back up in here, you want to see one big solid strong candle. I think if this continues to grind, it's just leading itself to a bigger bang drop down. All right, let's tick along. We've got copper. Copper, another one that's holding to sort of keep itself up around the top end here. Certainly. Look, this is what I was playing. The sort of up down here. We called this sort of lower high, or I called this lower high as it was coming, and bang, caught the short side here. Got ready for another sort of wave down, looked like it was going, and then and again, pushing up. And this is kind of what we're seeing across the board with a lot of this stuff is, I mean, this actually dropped down a little bit lower, so you can't say that this is fully just it's consolidating the highs here, because even though it has bounced back up, it is still technically, as you can see, whoops, putting in lower highs. So really, I think you've got a couple of layers of sellers above here, should this thing even push above here. I think this is potentially more revisit this level of 485, and then you've got a couple of levels of buyers on the bottom side here as well. We almost got a little bit of a triangle kind of sort of forming here. I'm not a super fan of this one, but you can kind of get an idea of what's happening here. You've got in this little short-term period here, buyers obviously stepping up their bid, sellers obviously still coming down with their sort of sell orders. So, I think it's sort of like, look, I would say, okay, you're underneath your first swings, but you've got levels of support all the way through. So I would say almost basically here, underneath those drop down lows, or really at the top over here. Look, that's still got a little bit of a move, and I think if you break here, you've got potential to come up and test those sellers at the top side over here. But again, it's going to be a major break, and you've broken the trend. you're going sideways. Is this all that it's got in it to sell down? That's a question. Um, I think not. I think it's probably got a little bit lower to go. This is just a potential for, should we break? So this is kind of my feeling here, actually, now that I sort of build this out a little bit more. Yeah, this one. Yeah. Excuse me. There and there. Through this triangle. I could see both of these breaking, either way, coming up and test the sellers over here, test the buyers over here. But I would say when we see all these other things break, if we see Aussie break out, we'll see copper break out over here. We'll see gold through 33.80. We'll see DXY break down. Inversely, I could see these things just bouncing through these areas. But till we get that bit of data, I don't think we're going to break these two levels. I think sort of, whoops, not doing too well with little clicks today. I don't think we're going to necessarily get any sort of major breaks at the moment. As you can see, this RSI is even sort of coming into a little triangle here as well. Not that I really mark these out like this typically, but as you can see, the buyers are moving up with their pressure, sellers are moving down with theirs. We're coming into a little break point here. So I imagine this little triangle to break at the same time as this little RSI triangle break, and should it sort of like move down, then I think we could be targeting 4.79. That'd be your major, that'd be probably actually, your major break to sort of see this thing sort of come back down over here. But for the time being, more just sort of sideways, I would assume. And as we go with China, this is my point, but loves to grind, and it's doing what it does. Look, I was a little bit over, not I was over, but a little bit over ambitious for it to think that maybe it'd come up and test these sellers over here. It's found itself in a nice little tight little range just in the middle here. Whoops, not purple zone. I don't know what that is. Normal zone. So we can see that obviously sellers are here. They smacked it down here. They smacked it down here. So look, this area here, should it break up higher? And this is what I'm saying. Everything's at its respective supports of resistance, really. But more or less, as you can see with all these charts, they're all kind of doing this. They're all just going sideways. They're waiting to sort of see, is this it for the DXY sell down? Are we going to see a rally effort with some keen USD buying across the board? I think we are. I think moving forward, I think it's got a bit, at very least, I think it's got a value play in it. And I think it's, the market's so heavily written off US dollar that the pain trade comes through buying US dollar and squeezing those people who are long euros, sort of like, long Aussie, sort of like, the people that are still sort of holding some profits in gold or something like this. I think, US dollar is primed at the moment to really sort of make a few people, even if it is going to go down lower, I think it's primed to sort of make a couple of people hurt first. It's a very sort of straightforward trade to just continue selling and bashing US dollar. And look, there's a lot of fundamental reasons why it shouldn't be back up at 105 or 106 or 110 or whatever. Like, there's a fundamental reason, maybe I should say it more, there's a fundamental reason why it is at sub 100. But it doesn't mean that you can't see a flare up to sort of screw the market a little bit and then push it back down to where it should be, well, where the market truly kind of values it at, which is around the sort of 98, 96, 98, 99, 100 kind of levels. So I am, as I keep saying, open to the idea of a little bit of US dollar buying. Should these things happen, we'll see them all across all these things. Like, we will see, it strengthen up against the yuan. We'll see Aussie push back down from its resistance. We'll see sort of gold probably sort of take out those, 32.60 levels. All these things will most likely sort of come together at the same time. Because as you can see, most things are sideways consolidating. They're building towards the breaks that are going to give us our next direction. And if the next direction is just a continuation of what we've already seen, Well, you get all the people like myself that are sort of think, hey, look, there's going to be a rally, there's going to be a rally, and which is, I would say, admittedly, probably the smaller segment of the market. They're going to take out all those people's stops because everybody, not everybody, but there's a segment of the market that are giving it a shot. You know where you're wrong, you bail out, um, or is it all the people that have been short the US dollar, which is a larger segment of the market, and the new people that are looking to sort of like, break this consolidation sort of even lower. It's like a more, to me, it's sort of like, I don't know, let's go a bit like this. You got one set of people, just call it here for a random sort of thing. Their stops are sitting here. These are the people that are going, yep, look, this is a bottom. They're not necessarily all sitting here, but maybe they're sitting here. But effectively, if you take out the major lows, this is where you go, okay, yep, no, this isn't a bottom. This looks like a bit of an inverted head and shoulders. Okay, maybe we're going to see a bit of a relief rally up over here. If it goes down through the major lows, bang, I'm wrong, on we go. You've also got people that have sort of stepped in and gone, yeah, look at this, it's consolidating. Yep, no, all the data and everything says we're going lower. Look, if it bounces back up here, I'm only in for this sort of low bit. I'll sell it and I'll move down here. But you've also got the people that have been short all the way along here. The people that have sort of been trailing their stops and they've been stops up here. Well, we broke down. That's cool. Let's move our stops here. Let's move our stops here. Let's move our stops here. So there'd be, and this is what I sort of mean. I think that there's more of a segment of the market with money and capital to be taken sitting up above here. And I think if you scream it up here, you hit out these people, you maybe drag in some longs, and then we start to move back down over here. And then you can come back down and take out these stops. Or take out the people that move up here and take out those stops if they sort of trail them up there. But you get to that when you get to that. The point is right now, I think there's probably more sort of pain to be had moving it up than it is to just be continuing it and moving it down. That's just my sort of feeling with this actionable. So I'll revisit it once we see the breaks of these areas. But certainly the fundamentals say that it should be around here, but it doesn't mean it can't move up and then sort of come back to where it should be. Pain trade, knock out a few people, and then sort of settle back down over here. We'll see how we go sort of moving forward. So yeah, that was pretty much it with China. Again, it's on a support. Looks like it wants to maybe try and sort of get back up. It's just going to keep grinding, in my opinion, till we get these sort of major breaks across the board. All right. Look, that's it. Already went through the news. Not really too much. Eyes on sort of what's going to be happening with this. This is going to sort of make it a little bit hard for the market to buy US dollar at the moment. So again, I'm pretty much just expecting it to be a little bit of a continuation of a grind. That's it from me.